So, hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, we have 30 minutes and I'd love to know what's going on, what's happening in your world. So, share a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we will dive right on in.
Love it. I'm Sarah Parise. I am a wellness coach specifically for moms. I've been in the personal training and wellness space since 2006, but joined Zero to Client last fall and decided to take all my programming online. So I'm finishing, I launched in January, this past January,
So
this year.
almost a year. Cool.
So I saw this opportunity and I was like, what a great way to kind of like force myself to recap and just kind of dive into what the year was like. Because wow, it's been a roller coaster.
For sure.
I work with
Okay. So, let's go back to the beginning because this is so fun. So, let's go back to the beginning. Why did you join Zero to Clients? Let's start there.
After following you for about 2.5 years, I'm one of those lurkers. Entertained it, was like, I can't because the money. I can't because the money. Because we were basically a single income family. I mean, I was working part-time as a trainer and a nutrition coach, but nothing substantial.
Right.
Mostly paying for the kids' extracurricular type stuff.
Sure.
So I was like, I can't do this. And then I don't know, something you said, one of the things you posted, one of the things you said, like really resonated. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, why not me? Why can't I be successful in this? I know I'm good at what I do. I've had huge success working with the women that I'd worked with in the past. I want to do something online because I want the flexibility for my life that I want to live with my kids, and I want to be there for them. And I don't want to be working as personal trainers tend to in the morning and at night when they're home. So I had multiple calls with your team to figure out if this was for me. And finally, literally put together, this is like the nerdy side of me, a PowerPoint presentation for my husband.
Yep.
It's like, this is why we need to invest in me. And he looked at me at the end of it and he was like all red in the face. And he was like, you could have just said, can I do this for myself? And the answer would have been, hell yes. I was like, I think I needed to prove it to myself.
Yeah.
Say that I can do this. I have a plan to do this. And it was the best decision I ever made because it changed me in ways that I could have never expected.
Okay. So before we talk about like the clients and the money, I want to actually sit here for a second because it's really interesting. I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day and she's 15. And so she's like she's turning 16. So she's grade 10. So next year we really have to start planning her curriculum for like post-secondary education. And she keeps saying, I want to take over your company. I want to take over your company. And I said to her, why? And she said, because I want to have the kind of lifestyle that you have. She's 15. So I've been doing this since she was born, basically. And I said to her, okay, but that can't be enough. Like, why else? Why else? And what I've come to realize in doing this work is that like the initial motivation of like, I want the lifestyle with my kids and all of that. This at least was my experience. I'm curious to know if this is your experience too. Turned into there's no other way for me to become who I know I can be if I don't do this.
110%.
And I said that to her and I was like, you see the external, right? You see the vacations and she gets to experience all that. I'm like, but you really don't get to see the side where like it completely changed who I am. Like I would have been an entirely different person, a different mom, a different human had I had stuck with being in those four walls in my clinical practice, doing the same thing day in. Like there was no stretching needed. Right? So given that you said that it changed you in like ways that you didn't know, I want to dig into that a little bit because I know that the money and the clients is a byproduct of that.
And I think that's what my big realization was like halfway through this year of like everything else is happening because all these other changes happened. Like I was a teacher for a long time. I taught middle school. I loved being a teacher. There was no reason I would have left except I became a mom and I could not put my daughter in daycare. I
Right.
like couldn't do it. So I was like, okay, I got to pivot and figure out what is my next step. I
Mhm.
always thought one of the biggest reasons I went into teaching is so I can be on their schedule and do what my mom did. But it's not, bored isn't the right word because I did love it. But the passion I feel for my own business is never like a fire that I felt in the classroom. It
Mhm.
just is so, it's so different. And when
Mhm.
I have my weekly group coaching calls with the women that I work with and I see their lives changing and then consequently their family's life changing for the better because they're developing healthy habits, because they're taking care of themselves, it is like a feeling like no other. And to
Mhm.
me, it's like, was I super successful with the money aspect? Like, no, it wasn't nearly as great as the year as I thought it would be. And I'm sure we'll dive into that. But for me, it's like, I kind of figured out who I am and who I want to be and the wife I want to be and the mom I want to be and the friend I want to be because of that I can do this in my business.
Mhm. What specific traits have you noticed that you've either strengthened or acquired through this journey, through this process?
I think I was always kind of patient. I always thought of myself as a patient person. Being a teacher, obviously, of middle school, you have to have some kind of patience or be insane. And I think I have a little bit of both. So I think that's
Mhm.
a good thing in middle school.
Yeah.
I think the patience, because nothing happens in entrepreneurship, at least in my experience,
Mhm.
at the pace that you think it's going to or you expect it to.
Agreed.
And the things that you think are going to be like surefire things fail, and you
Yeah.
just fail and you fail and you fail. And I think I've always been persistent, but it's like next level now of
Mhm.
just the determination. But the patience is unreal of what, even when it was 6 months ago,
Mhm.
putting myself out there and kind of waiting and doing this and trying that and it's not working. And I think especially when, because teaching is really the only thing I have to compare it to, of like when a lesson flops, you're like, you throw it out, you just don't keep trying. In
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, you're like, this could have flopped for like a zillion different reasons, not because it doesn't resonate with people. So it's like a whole other level of patience, and I see it come through in definitely being a mom of a 5 and 7 year old. I see it in my marriage. I just, the patience in general, I think is the main quality.
Do you think that, because I know this also to be true for myself, like, do you think that because you now have this identity as like a business owner and the results are yours to create, do you think that that feeling of like empowerment um, melts into other aspects of your life?
Absolutely. And just the confidence. Like I remember on one of the calls when I was in zero to client, and I don't even know who said it, but they're like, well, you're the business owner. And I was like, oh, I am the business owner. Like this is my decision to make. And I think that way in parenting also, like sometimes you have to remind yourself, I am the mother. I am the mother. I'm in charge. They're not in charge kind of thing. And it just, the confidence definitely bleeds into everything. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes me a more giving person. It makes me a more understanding person. And it definitely makes me the entrepreneur that I am.
Yeah. And you said the word failure like a bunch of times. Because I have a whole different understanding now of that word. And I've actually like eliminated it from my vocabulary because it's just learnings. Like
Mhm.
it's expectations. It's unrealistic expectations with information, right?
Mhm.
Like so how has your view on failure shifted like in this last year? I'm so curious.
And I like the way you just phrased that too, that it's not failure, because I don't look at this year as a failure at all, like a huge success. But for example, I had the goal in January to work with 50 women, 50. I was going to have 50 clients. This is what money I was going to make. This is what I was going
Yep.
to contribute to my household. Well, here we sit on December 6th, and I've worked with 15, 1 5.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot harder to get those 15 than I thought it was going to be. And if I look at my goal versus my result, it didn't work out the way I had planned, but
Right.
I don't look at it as a failure at all.
And I think it's really interesting too, because some people might be listening to this and think, well, you did fail. Like it didn't work, like it didn't work. Right. And I think that's such with all due respect, I think that's such an ignorant, very fixed mindset, because it's a continuum. Right. And I think that's what most people don't understand. They also maybe don't get, from 0 to 50, all that goes into that. Right. Like
and then they're all starting at a really different spot. Like when I was part of the spotlight a few months ago and I was listening to these women and I got off that call and hit a real low. I was like, I don't belong on this call. Like there's women in this room that are going to be on track to do 7 figures next year. Until about 6 months ago, I wasn't even sure what that meant.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Can't even imagine that. And it took me a couple weeks to be like, I have always preached like the non-comparison, because not everyone starts. Like I started from 0. I didn't have a Facebook group. I was barely on Facebook. I didn't have a community. I had 0 email list. I wasn't working. I was, teaching yoga once a week. Like that's not a client base kind of thing. And when people say they start with 0, well, everyone's 0 is different. Everyone's ground floor is different.
Yes.
Well, I didn't have an online business, but you had a full-blown business.
Like you've done this before. You sort of have that, experience. So what helped you to get those 15 clients? Like, what do you think? Okay, so like, let's do a little bit of an audit. What did work for you?
Being in person, which was not the plan in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
But I was like solely online from January to June and wasn't like networking in my community or networking even in the spaces that I run in, like a mom's group that I'm very active in, that I'm a huge part of, at yoga, teaching classes, teaching free classes. And over the summer, I kind of leaned into more of like in-person networking and just kind of made it my goal to like, I needed to meet at least 3 people a week, like brand new people, and leaned into that and realized, wow, this is really, I was kind of silly for just being like, oh, I'm only online kind of thing. Because you can have an online business, but still be in person and still have that reach. So that was a big game changer for me, of like something about that shift of mindset of being like, people get to know me way faster in person. I mean, I could teach a class and they could really know me and they, sign up for everything that I have to offer. And I'm like, well, that was easy. Well, that was easier than posting and nurturing for months on my Facebook group and building my email list. But it has to be a combination. I'm not content doing one or the other. So I think doing both was a big pivot for me.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. And I think the important part of that is understanding the structure. So like there still needs to be leads, right? And I think for a lot of people, the online business part can be all consuming, and then they give up things that they really like in person, and for me, it's like, I don't care where the leads come from. Just grow your list. Right. And this is where I love that you said, well, I'm the business owner, because you didn't sit in, well, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. You were like, okay, how am I going to make this work? What do I like to do? And then you went and did it.
And I did the same thing with the webinar. I forced myself for 1 full year to do a webinar. I hate webinars. There's nothing I like about webinars. You know what I like? Challenges. I like, hey, we're going to do this 3-day challenge. I get way more engagement on doing a challenge in my now much bigger Facebook group because of the lead gen I've done than I do on a webinar. Occasionally I'll do one. I do like one a quarter as more of like an informational thing and to kind of open house my program, but not, I'm like, why am I doing this if I really hate this? This is not worth it.
Yeah.
Seeing amazing results. And I was like, well, you have to keep doing this because it's working. I'm like, it's probably not working because my heart's not in it.
100%.
My heart is in doing like a Step It Up challenge every month where I get, 60, 70 people in my Facebook group who are participating. And I'm like, well, that's way better than any webinar I've ever done.
Yes, 100%. And again, I love hearing this because for me, that's such a win, like from what we teach, because I actually was saying this yesterday in my 5-day live course. We were talking about innovation and technology, and they were like, how do you keep up? I'm like, I don't. I don't keep up. I know the fundamentals and I can translate them into any tech platform or any marketing campaign. And that's what we like, that's what we gave to you is
100%.
the fundamental of, if you're going to run a webinar, here's the framework. If you're going to run a challenge, here's the framework, right? You need to bring in leads. You need to bring in a certain number of leads. You can't just educate them or they won't want to book a call. Right?
And you need to do the marketing emails to lead up to it. And you need to sprinkle what you do throughout it. And you need to all the same. It's just a different presentation of it.
It's like going to an ice cream shop. Like, it's just different flavors, but it's still ice cream.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to make ice cream, it's irrelevant. Right? So I love that you were able to commit to doing something to learn it and then make it your own, which is, for me, the biggest win. When I hear that from clients, I'm like, yes, you get it. And when you do that, I have no doubt that like the success is coming because you now have the confidence, you have the skill set to be able to take the fundamental strategies and make them your own.
And it feels like that too. It feels like this year was like a year of building and not like financial building. But like just really learning what works, what doesn't work, how to bring people in organically, and still like I still pay for Facebook ads because I like the combination of the two. And, you know, rolling into next year, just excited. And it's fun to be excited about what you do. It's fun to like love what I do. And I work a lot. Like, it's hilarious how much I work. I was like, no, I'm only going to do this much. I'll only work when my youngest is in preschool. When she's in preschool, I'll do that. No, I find myself like I'm prepping dinner and they're playing and I'm like on my laptop, or at night I do stuff, but it's stuff I enjoy. So it doesn't feel like a chore to be able to keep up and do it.
Yes. And I think that again too, like if I was to list the success traits, like it has to be that, you know, when people come into Zero to Clients and they're like, well, how many hours should I allocate? And I'm like, oh boy, like all of them, you know, like you're going to want to. And I think that's also the difference. And this is like a little bit of cultural programming as well, but it's more like the results that you want are abnormal, right? Like 50 clients, it's abnormal, right? To have that as working for yourself. And so the actions you need to take are abnormal. Right? To other people, when they see you working on a Saturday, they're like, why, you know, you work too much. And it's like, it brings me joy.
And it really does.
It brings me joy.
My family sees it and I
like it brings me joy. And I think some people, not everybody, but some people are just hardwired that way. Right? Not everybody who starts an online business, it doesn't bring them joy. They thought it would and it doesn't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you know, the fact that it brings you joy and you're figuring it out. And the other thing I want to say too about like the building, you know, I think people have this unrealistic expectation of like what year one will be, not realizing,
hilarious,
despite us saying it over and over and over again, you know, like I think the building, finding the voice, finding the things that work for you, feeling comfortable in leading, right? Feeling comfortable in being influential, feeling comfortable in being an authority and like showing up that way. That requires a shift. Like it requires a shift, and that doesn't happen overnight. And then the other thing I'll say about that too is that, you know, building, like having those building years, it's not just in year one, right? Your business will sort of like, so now you've built it. So next year, you'll be more successful than you were this year, and probably year 3. And then year 4, you're going to be like, oh, I need to now fix this again. And you'll have another building year, right? We just went through a building year in 2023, right? Where we were like, okay, you can't, it's interesting. It's very difficult to scale and build at the same time. You actually can't do that, right? So it's something that is repetitive. And I think having the understanding that like, this isn't just okay, I've made it. You're like, this is my career. This is my business. I'm here for the long haul. And I'm going to learn what I need to learn, you know?
I had a friend ask me when I first joined Zero to Client, if I thought I would be successful, which I find is a hilarious broad statement anyways to ask someone.
Yeah.
And I was like,
No, I don't think so. I just like, I don't know.
would I do it if I wasn't going to be successful? And then it made me think, like, even from the very beginning, like, what would be successful? Like, say I hit this. Okay, great. Well, then I'm going to want this. And then I hit that. And then it's this. And it's
Such
like,
a moving target.
it is such a moving target. And
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. You have to somewhat enjoy the journey. I think seeing like what you think is overnight success on, social media, especially of like, oh, I made my client 1.7 overnight. Well, you didn't. Like there's like, I don't know where that's happening. Like, I know that's not true, but seeing like, even in Zero to Client, like the unicorns who are like exploding right from the beginning. And you're kind of like, oh, could that be my year one? Like at the end of year one, could I hit 6 figures? Really? That's a possibility. Of course it's a possibility, but I'm not working full time. My youngest is still home part-time. I am home. This is my job right now. It's not, I don't know, the comparison I think gets a lot of us.
Yeah.
A lot starting your own business. You're just like, it's
100%.
No?
I mean, I still feel it. I spent this year really like disengaging from the world because I was like, nope, this is my journey. And it's the same thing, right? Like I have 2 kids. They're both teenagers. I'm driving them around. I don't have the freedom and flexibility to jet set, to masterminds and this and that. And even at night, like I don't have it. And so it's redefining success based on the season because every season is different. When both of your kids are in school full time, right? You'll have more time in the day to work.
Absolutely.
Right? And then when they become teenagers, it's like all the time. It's like back when they were toddlers. It's like all the time, all of a sudden vanished. Like, what's one of the things that you're working on now to support your success next year?
So one of the things I've really trying to shift is I know I don't book enough calls. And I think that's like a kind of a theme in this group. Yeah. I just want to book more calls. Like, yes, would be the thing. I think my like converting people from coming into my Facebook group as a stranger to me, not someone I've met in public, not a friend of a friend, like a total stranger, how I can nurture them faster so they get to know me quicker and just kind of streamlining that process of just kind of laying out what it looks like.
Yeah.
And connecting with them in a way that they do want to get on a call with me. So they do what I do. And then of course, like the overarching, like I need to be better about consistently on social media. But I think that bringing them in, because I'm getting people into my Facebook group, great. Like a group of 600 now, which I had a group of 0 in January. So it's like my goal was 500 this year. So there's a goal, there's a success for those crunchers out there that consider numbers a success. But I think that's where my focus needs to be because it takes too long for people to get on a call with me. And there's got to be a reason why.
Yeah. We did that too this year. This year was like the year of the goal was to book X number of calls every single month. Mm-hmm. And we focused on it for the entire year. And we only did it in Q4.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Like Q1 was a bust. Didn't happen. Q2 was better. Q3 was better, but we still had an inconsistent month. And only hit the goal every month in Q4.
So why do you think that is?
Because we were like, this worked, this didn't. Let's do more of this. Okay. Everything takes time. In the online world, nothing happens overnight because you need new leads to come in to run the test again. It's like building a model plane, right? You build the plane and then you do the test. And then some of it works, but some of it didn't. And then it takes time to figure out why it didn't. But then it also takes time to figure out what you're going to do instead. And then it takes time to actually test it again. And that takes 60 days.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like you can run a test and then the next day. And again, it's the patience thing. It's like, okay, as long as you're continuing micro improvements, you will hit the goal. You just won't hit it in the time frame that you thought because it was unrealistic to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? So if you think of any tangible outcome, right? Even like baking a cake or a recipe in a restaurant, like how many versions of the recipe does the chef make before they have a home run? Right? I'm going to say more than 3.
Yeah.
How long did that take them? Right? And so that's why. It's because nothing happens overnight, because you can't run a new webinar the very next day.
Yeah.
Right? You can't run a new version of the challenge the very next day. You need to give time for lead gen. You need to fix it up. You need to test, you know what I mean? And so everything takes longer than in our brains we would like it to. Mm-hmm. Just because we would like it to take less time doesn't mean that that's the reality. Right? And so Q1, I think we hit it 1 month because we were running a campaign, and then Q2, we were close. I think, again, we hit it 1 month. And then Q3, we were like, okay. And then because we saw what worked over the period of time. So we just stopped doing everything else and we only did the things that worked. Mm-hmm. And then we hit it. And we were like, oh my gosh, we've been 2022, that didn't happen. I'm like, this is 2 years in the making. So like we worked at something for 2 years.
That's fake.
Like, what's the alternative?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a good mindset too. It's like, either you just give up, or you're like, okay, cool. We're just going to keep testing and iterating, and eventually we're going to hit it. Right? Mm-hmm. We hit it. We know exactly what we need to do. And now we've increased the goal for next year because we know how to do it. But it literally took 2 years. Like 1 year of full focus, but 2 years of like, same thing, calls. This is a problem we have.
Yeah.
Right? It's the problem everybody has.
Every single spot, like I listen to.
How do I book more calls?
How do I book more calls?
The way that we booked more calls is we had more marketing events. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We stopped trying to optimize evergreen and stopped trying to optimize what everybody was telling us we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And we did what you did. And we looked at, what do I like to do? What gets me excited? Mm-hmm. Which are webinars, funny enough. And I was like, just let me at the people. Just give me the people. Fill up my webinars and give me the people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we did it. Right? And so
I like what you said about it, though, that it's like you took what worked and then you had to figure it out and work on it. Because I think about, like, I did 10 challenges this year. So it started in March because I was like, I'm going to do this on top of the webinar to kind of get people twice throughout the course of the month.
Yep.
And some were amazing. I did like a live cooking, healthy snack challenge. Amazing. Out of the park. Fantastic. Got me 4 clients. Other ones that I was super excited about, like nobody showed up. And I was like,
100%.
Different. But I like what you said, that you just like, you keep taking pieces that worked and then, you kind of glue it together and kind of rig it and set it off to fly again.
Yeah. And now this year we have our 6 marketing campaigns, and we now mapped those out for next year. And now we're just going to put all the lead gen towards those, because the ones that I we did this thing called the launch pad. Mm-hmm. It didn't work. I thought it was going to work. It didn't work. That took 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Right? There's 52 weeks in a year. You know what I mean? So it's like, I love that we started this conversation with patience, because I think people don't understand the long road, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to take what worked this year. You're going to do it next year. Next year, you'll get 30, 40 clients. You'll get 50 clients. Depends on your lead gen.
Yeah.
Right? And then you'll be like, cool. And then either you'll be like, great, and you'll go and have more ideas and test those, or you won't, which you shouldn't. And you'll just continuously do what works. Mm-hmm. And put more people into the things that work. But staying that course and being that disciplined is very hard. And that was the thing. It was like, let's try this and let's try this. And it's like, what if we just did the 3 things over and over and over again that work? Mm-hmm. Right? So, but yeah, it does. It takes time. And I think that's I think that's the frustration that most people have, is they're not patient enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it should be instant. Well, I think I said during that success panel that I thought if I build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be banging down my door to try to get into my program. And I really thought that, that was my mentality going in, which I think a lot of people, that resonates with a lot of people. They're like, of course, that's what I was going to do. This program's amazing. Why would you not want to do it? I don't understand.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I guess that's not how it works.
I think it's amazing too, as we like wrap this up, you know, you set a big audacious goal, and I love that. And imagine if you didn't, right? Imagine if you were just like, I'll just do whatever. Like whatever will be, right? And then you got 5 clients because you're like, wow, I got 5 clients. That's amazing. But you could have gotten 15, right? So I think that it's amazing to set these goals and reach them, because no matter what, you will end up farther than if you didn't.
100%. And I think that's why, like, when people talk about doing a minimum and then doing a medium and then doing a reach, I'm like, well, why not just do the reach? Like, why not just do the reach and then get as close as you can to that reach? And then if you hit it, amazing. And then you reach, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. I think, you know, as you said, the women that you coach, the impact cascades down. So yes, maybe, you know, 15 people paid you, but their families are also your clients now. You know, their coworkers, their friends, you know. So I think that that's amazing. And I think that you learned a lot this year. And I love that you like found the joy.
I really did. And then, don't get me wrong, there was frustrating weeks, months, days, you know, like, but it is a roller coaster. But you've been living it a lot longer than I have, and you're still in it. So, I mean, to me,
because you know what's funny, and I think this could be like a whole nother conversation, and maybe we will have it. Even in the most frustrating, like this isn't working, there's still the joy. And I know that that's hard for people to understand, but there's still the joy, because I'm still doing it for me on my own, my terms. There's still the joy. And I think that's why I have been around for this long, is because even when nothing was working, we were still making progress. Like you could still see progress being made, and that's the joy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for this.
Thank you.
Amazing. Bye.
Bye.